Hello, and this is my introduction to the coaching session that I was able to do at my school. Before we get into what happened, let's first introduce you to the players. We have Shannon, who is a family and consumer science teacher. She has been in education for around 22 years. She agreed to let me test out my coaching skills on her. I am Trish. I have been in education for about 6 years. I've been a model teacher for 3 of those and playing around with being more involved in that role. So, in this case, we needed to establish a need. I got to flip the dynamic instead of it being something where the coach to teacher reached out. I was able to ask um, for Shannon to help me out because I needed to do this project. Uh, so the need was a little bit more artificial than it might have been. But once I got in there, I realized that I hadn't picked wrong. We have worked together for the last 5 years. We have a pretty good working friendship. I have taught both of her children. She has watched mine grow up. Um, And so it was pretty easy to get started as we already had that basis. Now let's get into what we actually did. So, in meeting with Shannon, we came up with 2 major goals. The first one was to get her creative sewing class a little bit more independent. Although it wasn't a huge class, she was feeling like they kept getting stuck. She had tried to upload videos onto Google Classroom, and um, because of firewall issues and the students not having access to YouTube, although she found these great tutorials that would allow her students to move forward, they weren't able to see them. So I had to show her how to work that around and get those posted up into Google Classroom. Her other major goal was to improve the turn-in process for all of her classes. She goes, "Oh, it would be so great if we could get them to stop having to email me their homework." And I was just floored. I hadn't had anyone email or drop off a homework piece since the first year that we had gotten computers. So to realize that she had been stuck in one of those first models that we tried out for the last 5 years, I knew I had to help. What we ended up doing most of our time with was working for that creative sewing piece, which is what I will show you on the next slide. So I was able to go through. She already had all the pieces. She just didn't know how to get them to move really smoothly with the students. So I introduced her to Edpuzzle, which I use as a flipped classroom, but I knew that she could use it in a different way. I've also used it when I knew I was going to be gone and I wanted to show a video, but I wouldn't be there to have my access to show it up on the big screen. So I was able to help Shannon get the Edpuzzles in. That's what you're seeing here are a couple of screenshots that her students actually did for me to show. We created some kind of artificial due dates because the kids would be able to move back and forth through them. We got the first one up, which was this DIY lanyards video. I was able to check in the next week and she goes, "Oh, they like it, but we need to change one of the settings. Can you show me how to let them skip?" Because when you flip the classroom, you want the kids to listen to the whole thing. But when you're letting them use it as their own tutorial, they need to be able to bounce around to where they are. So this is one of the images from that lanyard project. that one of the students was able to show me. Like, she didn't have to watch the video to get to this point. She just did a quick, or she shot forward and took the screen cap for me, although she'd already been there. Couple of the kids in class said that it was great because Jaden said it allowed her to move forward when Shannon was busy in class helping other people, so she didn't feel that she was stuck, which allowed her to be much more in control of her own information. Gemma stated that it allowed her to do more on her own. She didn't have to worry about keeping up with the class or only having that one frame of reference. The videos also just helped in the fact that Shannon didn't have to sit with all of the kids crowded around one sewing machine and show them the process. So it was a great movement for them. We will continue to work on her second issue. I've shown her a couple of things, but I don't see this being the end of our working relationship. I see this as really just starting and hopefully helping Shannon become much more comfortable. As we were wrapping up, I really focused on the wrap-up question that asked, did the students learn more or less with this activity? Because I felt like that was one of the main pieces. She had gone through the first half of the semester working in her more traditional system. We flipped it toward the end, allowing the kids to have much more freedom. Shannon told me that it was great because she was able to move around the room. When the kids had a question, if it was something that she knew was covered well in that video, she was able to direct them back, and that really freed her up to move around and help the students that were stuck on a much higher or much more difficult place or just really uncomfortable, as opposed to those who wanted to make double sure that they knew exactly what they were doing before they were going. Those kids now had more freedom. A benefit that she did state that she didn't expect was that it increased the student ownership. There was much more peer helping because when one of the students would come up and say, hey, I'm really stuck on this, one of their peers was able to go, oh, I remember that. I had to watch the video a couple of times before I got it. Here, let me help you. So that's this was an unintended benefit, was really increasing that ownership and that independent learning. She says that the kids have been able to move forward a lot more smoothly than they have in the past. She and I have worked on how to make her own tutorials, which has stalled just a little bit because of the holiday season, but I think we'll come back to that maybe next year, or next semester as she moves into her interior design class. I could see there being a lot of independent movement in that one as well. Overall, Shannon and I both really enjoyed this process. I think one of the days that we learned the most, she had asked for a very simple idea. She asked me to help with the title on her Google Classroom. So if I pull up a Google Classroom, each class has their own banner, which you can choose from one that's given, or you could upload a picture. And I had to work with Google Classroom more because it's not the learning management system that I use. So this banner here, she was like, wouldn't that be cool if I could upload one of the project pictures to it? So I found the picture that she wanted. We played around with it for a little bit. And she said that the most beneficial thing was that I couldn't do it in the first try. We uploaded the picture. and the picture cut off one of the students. So then I took the picture and I moved it into something else so that I could put margins on both sides and I could crop it differently. And it took me probably 4 or 5 times before I got the picture to come out like we both were comfortable with, having enough of each student shown so that no one's feelings would get hurt. Um, I apologized afterward because I had just bopped around really quickly because I wanted to learn how to fix the problem because it didn't do what I wanted it to, um, when I first got started. And she told me, no, that was great. It made me feel so much better that it didn't work perfectly for you the first time. So I learned something about how teaching peers, or other adults works in that case, because I assumed that she would want to be walked through where, and have it look like I knew all of the pieces. But she was much more comforted by the fact that I didn't have all the answers the first time that she asked them to me. I had to go look. And I think that she found that much more accessible than if I had had all of the answers. So, as I stated, I don't see this being the end to our um, peer helping or collegiate coaching experience. I see this as a pause, and we will pick back up next semester and really move her into a comfort level that is more suited to where she would like to be.